Hi, this is Casio, and you're watching Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV.
G'day guys, and welcome to the Purebred Reds Adelaide United Fan TV. I'm your host, Ellis Gelios, as always, and this afternoon on what is an absolute scorcher of a day in Adelaide, we are here to preview the original rivalry with us taking on Melbourne Victory this Saturday night, 7:20 p.m. local time at the newly named Marvel Stadium. Just going to quickly touch on the Brisbane Roar game. It was a fantastic win for us, 2-1 in the end. Got a little bit tense towards the finish line, but we got over the line indeed, and it was a super effort given that Taylor Regan got himself sent off with a red card after giving Stephen Mork, former Adelaide United championship player, a bit of a poke in the old eye socket. Bit of a brain fade from Reegs. Like I said, 2-1 in the end. A lot of friction in the game. There always seems to be when the Aloisis come to town, or indeed when we go to Queensland. Of course, John and Ross, South Australian legends of the game, and the two coaches of Brisbane. A lot of controversy. Ross Aloisi reportedly had to excuse himself because he could see himself getting into hot water sooner or later with all the bickering that was going on between the two dugouts. Marco Kurz and John Aloisi obviously had the war of words as well on the touchline, which the Fox Sports cams or microphones, I should say, picked up, and we're thankful for that as well. It was very entertaining. But like I said, always tension when the Aloisis come up against Adelaide United. There's a lot of history there going all the way back to Ross Aloisi's departure from Adelaide United, all the way back after that 6-0 grand final loss to Melbourne Victory. So lots of history, and it looks like there's always going to be a lot of tension whenever the two meet. Just quickly moving into the ins and outs for both sides. So for Adelaide, in comes Daniel Margush, Michael Jakobsen, Dorigo and Armiento, all promoted. The outs, obviously Taylor Regan with the suspension, the red card that he got against the Raw, and Isaac Richards also not selected, and unavailable remains Bubba Diawara. More on him in a second. George Blackwood, Lockie Brook and Mirko Boland. For Melbourne, George Niedermeyer comes in. James Troisi, the South Australian boy, of course, and Nicholas Sett. Outs, Ansell, the centre-back, and unavailable for Victory, Kenny Athiu and Jai Ingham. We shouldn't have too many Warriors there. They're both rubbish, those two. Just quickly getting into some historical stats. So it doesn't look good for us, unfortunately, in the head-to-head with Melbourne. In fact, we are obliterated statistically. We've won 13 of our games against Victory across the entire history of the A-League. They've won 25, and there's been 10 draws. And get this one, Melbourne Victory have scored 80 goals against us, whilst we've only scored 55 against them. That's pretty grim. So definitely something to think about there. Just quickly moving into our key topics. So Melbourne, unfortunately, they are the form team of the league. How can we contain their stars like Honda, Toivonen, and that dynamic midfield that they've got, Antonis, and everyone else that they've got running the show in there. Going to be hard. Going to be a tough night. A lot of things are going to need to go right for us. Melbourne Victory, they've had a dominant start to the league. They lost their first two games, but that seems like a distant memory now. They've pretty much had it comfortably in the last few weeks. They did need a bit of luck to beat Sydney FC 2 weeks ago, but Last weekend they had no trouble whatsoever smashing Western Sydney Wanderers. Like I said, going to be a tough day at the office indeed for us, and we're really going to need to make sure that we show up and throw in our very best effort. The big one for me, will the Etihad, or as we now have to call it, Marvel Stadium Hoodoo, return for our players mentally? Now, of course, we did win there last season in what was one of the biggest smash and grab wins I've ever seen. I think we went down to 9 men on the night. So we have won there recently, but Etihad is generally not a happy hunting ground for us. I keep calling it Etihad. That's just going to be something we have to get used to. Marvel Stadium, I should say. That ground, though, it's not a happy hunting ground at all. It is, of course, the infamous backdrop of the 6-0 grand final loss, and really since then we haven't won there very often at all. I can only remember a handful of wins there, if that. So yeah, the hoodoo of playing at that ground, hopefully it doesn't return to haunt us like it usually does. And like I said, we did get a win there last season, but it was a very, I'm not going to say lucky because we worked very hard, but there was fortune about it, and on another day it could have easily been Melbourne beating us 2-1 or 3-1 or something like that. Michael Jacobson returns for Adelaide United, which is quite convenient because obviously we lose Taylor Regan due to that suspension. Jacobson back in. He has not played the last 2 games due to soreness, so I hope that it was naturally planned for him to come back in this week, irrespective of Taylor Regan's issues. But yeah, it looks like Marco Kurz will be able to return to his favoured centre-back pairing of Elsie and Jacobson. One thing that does favour us in this game, it's an 8-day turnaround for us, so that's quite handy. Plenty of time to refresh. Quite a handy advantage, I'd say. For Victory, it's a 7-day turnaround, so it's not like really that big of a deal, but it's pretty handy that we don't have to back up so soon after playing our last fixture. Hopefully there's been plenty of time that's been afforded to Marco Kurz to make sure that he physically gets everyone in the best shape possible for the game, and obviously to work a lot tactically on how to approach the game as well, because this is, for me, this is like the real test. It's Victory, it's away. They seem to be the informed team at the moment. If we can go over there and get a result, surely that says everything about the fact that we definitely have championship credentials about us. It's a very, very difficult early test though, indeed. I want to pose the question, is the original rivalry the best in the league? I actually think it is, to be honest, and maybe that's some Adelaide bias coming into it from me, but I think this game has delivered more than any other fixture. With a Big Blue, it kind of gets a little bit sort of blown out of proportion sometimes. They obviously make the special effort to always put it on Australia Day. Sometimes it's not always the best of games. A lot of the time you get a Sydney or a Victory really badly out of form, or one of them not having a good season. For some reason, whenever we play Melbourne Victory, it's always a good game. Even when they belt us, there's always a lot of heat in the game. There's a lot of passion and emotion, and whether or not it's a close game, or usually whenever we win like a snatch and grab, or Victory smashing us, which is the other end of what usually happens, it's always entertaining. It's always a fixture that I think neutral fans look forward to a lot as well. And obviously the SA Victoria rivalry goes back decades. So for me, this is, I think, the best rivalry in the league. They hate us, let's be honest. They absolutely despise us, and we don't have anyone else to hate, really. Like, when you boil it down, they say we've got supposedly a rivalry with Sydney, but we don't really. We don't like them, but we don't completely hate them. We hate victory. We love to hate victory, and there's no question the two teams despise each other. Look at all the things that have happened throughout the history in this contest. It's absolutely just so engaging, and there's no question, like I said, that this is a huge rivalry and probably the best in the league. Marco Kurz has come out in the media and said he's focusing on our attackers and not theirs. Is that bold, or is that a healthy way to approach the game? Obviously, when you look at the players that Melbourne Victory have and the kinds of combinations that they can work with when it comes to their starting 11, it does make me shake a little bit, I've got to say. But I feel like maybe if there's a team in the league right now that can really sort of halt their momentum, I think it's us. I really do. I think we can go over there and put in a performance that really rattles them and makes them work for it. I don't think it's going to be a case of Melbourne Victory just coming home easily with the 3 points. But yeah, in terms of Marco Kurz's mentality, could be could be a good way to go about things, not thinking about their players and trying to instill that same approach in our players mentally, to just forget about who they're going to be lining up against. Focus on how good they are individually, and the fact that on paper, despite the fact that it does look like a difficult task, we probably are good enough to go over there and match them. I think Marco Kurz is probably playing his cards right there. Just some outside news: Bubba Diawara successfully underwent an arthroscopy on his knee. Is he far off from being fit again? Hopefully he is very much going to be in the fold within maybe a month or so. We desperately need a target man, sort of number 9. And we're missing it massively at the moment. Hopefully this is really the kind of news that we can welcome and anticipate an early return for Bubba Diawara, who has been out for pretty much the entire season. Questions about whether we should go for someone in January. I don't think it's going to happen. Bubba's contracted, and I don't see us paying out his contract. I think they're just going to try and make it work with how it is, with him being touch and go constantly, and then for him to be reviewed with his contractual situation at the end of the season. But in terms of the more near future, I think hopefully they put all their efforts, the club, into just making sure that they nurse him as best as possible and accommodate him in the exact way that he needs, so that he comes back fresh and raring to go as soon as possible. Just want to ask finally, how should we line up in this game? Marco Kurz seemed to get it right against Brisbane Roar. He's got options. Is this going to be a case of us probably not dominating possession? I think so. In that case, I'd probably go with more of a player that can hold the ball up, and for me that's probably going to be Apostolos Stamatolopoulos returning to the starting 11. I don't see how else you can play this one. Maybe he can move Ken Ilso into number 9 and then Craig Goodwin into 10. Maybe he goes for speed and brings in like a Nikola Miluznic to start. I got no idea. What do you guys think? How should we line up? He's really got to get it right. He's got to nail the starting 11 if we're a chance to get anything from this game. Finally, just moving into our key player segment. For us, it's Craig Goodwin. And for Melbourne, a lot of people would probably expect me to say someone like Keisuke Honda. No, I'm going to go for Ola Toivonen. I think he's going to be deadly from set pieces. I think he's very much in the mood to get his noggin on something and score with a head. I'm really worried about his presence, and I think he's the key player for Melbourne Victory. Just finally, guys, make sure you like all the Adelaide United fan pages that we've got on Facebook to deliver us all our news, AUFC news, the Reds, the Adelaide United supporter page, and any other pages that you come across. They put out a lot of good updates and all the relevant news as soon as it comes out and is made consumable. So please make sure you get around them, and make sure you get around our page as well. Like us, share us, and also get around our YouTube page, which I haven't really promoted yet. That's in the works, but right now it hasn't been promoted too much. All the videos do go up there. Make sure if you've got a YouTube account that you subscribe to that one. I've been your host, Ellis Gelios. Make sure you enjoy the Saturday night clash against Melbourne Victory. Get out, watch it at a pub, have a barbecue, get the friends around, get around the game. Thanks a lot, guys. It's been great bringing you another show. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Cheers.